Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Valerie Berrios Reyes. I'll be your artist slash host for today. We're going to be doing the Krampus ZBrush Sculpt for Full Sail University. We're in the holiday spirit, and we decided that it would be kind of cool to kind of do that to see how I would approach doing this sculpt and what it kind of comes out, right? Let's see first what we have here. My specialization in character art. I mostly do a little bit more on the stylized side. I have done realistic. Love both. Recommend both. It's great. I've been here a few years, like it says there, 6 years, and working in the game art side of things. I help students just doing their art, giving them feedback on anything if they need to, and just more support. Let's see it. Next one. Boom, boom, boom. So, the way we chose Krampus, or why we chose Krampus, is because we are celebrating our Camp Krampus December 5th celebration, right? So that's why we decided to kind of choose that topic. And like I said, I wanted to see which areas it would be best in the sense of if I wanted to go a little bit more on the creepy side, or a little bit more on the cutesy side. But like always, I love a little bit more of the creepy inspirations. Like for example, one of the things that I wanted to add on the sculpt would be the goat eyes, which are a slight trait that they mention in the folklore of Krampus back in the day. And it's also one of the inspirations that I took for one of the images that I will show you in a second on my inspiration board. That I wanted to add that key specific thing because I thought it was like weird. So I was like, yeah. So that's what we have today. I do want it to also, and I'll show you guys how in my reference board, in my screen share, give me 1 minute. Oops, sorry. There you go. Awesome. Thank you. So, how I always say and always, kind of like clear on that, how I kind of choose and go through the process. So maybe it helps you guys on this. So, first things I do, go to Pinterest, be like, look for your theme of whatever choice, and then get a inspiration board. If anybody knows or doesn't know what I'm using currently the program Puref, Puref in Google. It's great to just click and drag images, just mentioning that. I always do mention it on the streams, but just if anybody doesn't know. What I kind of divide it is, if you see, I divide it in inspiration overall, right? And really, really cool stuff that I see a couple artists kind of just do to their sculpts that I would like to see in my sculpt. And then the original inspirations, which is what I'm trying to get the goal of or towards, would be, for example, in mine right now on this one, these three. I like a lot of this one on the third one on the right because the lighting and everything like that, that gave me, okay, cool. When I post this and when I go for the lighting, that's where I want to go. So I left it there. And I also like a lot of the facial features that it has. As you see, I went a little bit more bony, goat-ish, as Krampus is. He's actually half goat, half demon, kind of mixed in between. So let's get started. Oh, actually, let me mention this before I move on. This right here on the right side, inspiration also for how I want the skin to feel. When I go to do my tertiary detail, I'm going to look at these pictures and I'm like, okay, maybe I want this from this one. I want this from this one, and kind of just move on with that. Just wanted to mention that so you guys know. Try to keep it organized also in the future, it will help you a lot on your process. So let's get started. First of all, I'm just going to put this in here. Oh, also props to the artist of this image at the top. This one I couldn't find him or her, but this one right here also great concepts for us 3D artists to kind of just translate, right? Cool. So first things first, I'm going to go to ZBrush. I'm going to push this on the side a little bit. I like to have it there always. And if you're just following with me on this, the first thing I always like to do is just start with the base. You can create it yourself. It just takes a little bit more time, at least for me. So what I do is I just go right here to the Lightbox, go to Projects, and you see how it says Heads of the Planes? That one I chose because it's simple. It gives me, like it says it right there, the heads of the planes, and I can just add whatever I want detail-wise, not too complicated, and it's not putting anything too extreme there. So I'm going to double-click that, and I'm going to do that. Cool. So let's get started. Let me go a little bit closer to the image because, there you go. Cool. So first things first, brushes that I'm using, clay buildup. I'm using, the first thing I do is clay buildup just to put everything in the canvas. I'm going to put my primary shapes in there. And I'm pretty sure that you guys that have seen my previous streams on Halloween, hi, welcome again. You have totally heard about this. And it's just part of the process, right? So what I want to do first of all is I want to, before I start putting clay in there, I always slightly enlarge it a little bit to side. I feel like it comes a little bit compacted for my taste. And somehow I always end up just adding some width side to side. So I'm gonna go and first things first. And I just like doing that. I'd like to add the eye cavity to just get that in there. It separates the nose a little bit more. And once a little bit more later, I start to put the eyes in there, eyeballs, it would be way, way better. It will fit a little bit better. I'm going to go more towards the bottom one, even though my inspiration when I first saw it was the top one. It's going to be an in-between those, to be honest. Today it's not going to be something so centered in one. It's just going to be in between those. So first things first, I'm going to actually move my ears because I feel like the ears aren't like that, right? So if I take a move tool and you guys see, and I do this, you see how it just breaks? What I try to do when I do any kind of elf ears for your future references, try to make or take the brush that it's called BSH on the canvas, and that's called, if I scooch over on the left side right here, it's called Snake Hook. That's really, really good for that because it's not going to just push everything like Move does. It's actually going to stretch it. So you'll see really quick here. And before I do that, let me add the mask brush that I like because there you go. I like using a lot the mask lasso. And that's the best one for me. So there you go. So I'm going to mask the inside so it doesn't take it, right? Because if not, it's still going to take it. And then I'm going to just do that. And like I said, I'm going a little bit more in the ears on the top one. So I'm just going to leave it a little bit longer. And remember, this is just primary shapes, scale, proportion, shapes, and landmarks that you might see that are going to help you continue your model really quickly. So that is one of the things that I like to do first, and they might not be the best shape now, but at least they're there, right? So from there, what I try to do now is biggest landmarks that I see on the face, which are, in this guy's case, cheekbones, right? We want to create those cheeky cheekbones. So always trying to make sure to have reference on the side, right? If you're starting, have other references that aren't, that are human or that aren't the concept per se, just so you know what we're seeing, right? If you want, also make sure to, if you're starting this, I cannot stress this enough. Anatomy references, you should have them on the side always. So, boom, we're gonna do cheekbone area, right? And because we're gonna do a little bit of a mouth open, there's a couple of ways to do it. The way I do it, to be honest, I just scratch on it. I'm just like, this is gonna be my mouth open, and I just scratch in it. Of course, you can cut it or you can boolean it with a shape if you want to. For me, this one's just, I don't know. I like scratching it, like with the clay buildup. It's therapeutic somehow. But I'm just gonna put the open gap there and check that. So if I now control, click, and drag on my canvas, I'm Dynamesh, right? So we're gonna go here to the geometry tab, Dynamesh, and we're gonna check our resolution. That's fine for now. Tip for you guys, the best resolution varies on your model, right? Size and scale and everything. So I would say the best resolution, or the best way to know what the best resolution is when you're starting your sculpt, is if you're able to smooth it out. So if I'm able to smooth this out, then that's good. If it's too high, for example, I go right here, right? Let me do something on it, and I can't barely smooth it out, so I have to struggle. That's when it's a little bit too high. So I'm actually gonna go a little bit lower. There you go. So now I can smooth it out easier. Remember, we're just doing primary shapes. It doesn't need to be too intense at all. So now I'm going to just go around and kind of move a few things because I feel like the head is still very, very planar. And that's going to be a lot of smoothing out from my part. I also like to give my busts a little bit more bottom, not just like a neck cut. That way I can add more muscle structure and it feels like it's like tough. So I do this really quick. I do the whole edge from this, soften it once by control clicking on the mask. And then I'm going to control click on the canvas and it will invert it. And then from there, I'm going to hit W. And I'm just going to scale this a little bit. And you see how it scales just that edge? Don't worry about the back. You can either move it later or add clay or whatever. But let's see if I actually selected it because I probably didn't. Yep, there you go. Now click and invert, and let's move this along. That's perfect. I feel like it just feels a little bit more realistic and like it has presence when it has that. It's just not a floating head. So we're gonna do that for now, and I still feel like my resolution, and like I said, this is gonna be a test on your resolution because I still felt like it was too intense for me to smooth out. So I'm gonna keep it there. And because I know this guy, at least on this, he's very, very like, his trapezes and everything is like very tough. I'm gonna add some height in the back so it has a nice contrast from the front to the back really quick. And I can even move it, or you can even build it, right? Whichever is your cup of tea. Some students like to build it. Some students like to move it with the move tool. So it's just your preference, to be honest. which ones get you the shapes faster. So there you go. Make sure if I'm doing something really quick, let me know. If you have any questions also on the chat. Sometimes I just get too involved in it. I'm just like, oh. So just let me know if any questions, okay? I'm here for you guys. So from there, what I want to do is now start adding some features in the face, right? So we did the cheekbone structure, a little bit of the mouth. It still needs to be way open. Just make sure you go around the model. Don't just focus on one thing when you're doing your primary shapes, right? So I do see that his brow is like super intense. So we're going to have to intensify that a little bit more because it feels a little bit too soft. His head is way, way wider. And I'm just moving things around. That's why I like like I said, the planes of the face. Just, it's really simple, so you have more control over that. You don't have anything already there. So, and I'm going to take the Danian standard brush and I'm going to do the line that I see around the area. And we might need to stretch some of the face, right? The face structure a little bit more. But I just want to have that nice roundness. And some of these muscles are a little bit too low. The resolution is a little bit too low. So don't worry about them. We're just going a little bit more extreme. Cool. I feel like this right here, if you see that at any point your model feels a little bit too short, then don't worry about it. Just stick the whole thing, invert it, scale it or push it down, accommodate it. So he feels a little bit less thin or like squashed. Remember, we're doing this in 3D and most of the time you're like, what's happening in ZBrush? It happens. So those movements are definitely necessary sometimes. Nothing is sacred. So I'm going to start adding some of that nice roundabout. It's a little bit weird to kind of identify this mouth at the top. So that's why I have other references, like I said. So that's where, if I'm going to the mouth area, might want to use this one better because it reads better than the other one. I do notice that most of this, how we're starting it, right? It feels like the mouth is just a mouth and there's no chin. So that's when we're going to just add a chin. Just make sure you make the edge of the mouth a little bit more. And then I'm just going to add that. And I might actually scratch this neck a little bit to give him a little bit more space. And from the side, don't worry about it yet because we're going to start pulling things out really quickly. And don't worry if it's looking, there you go. Don't forget your jaw structure, right? And because it feels a little bit flattened from the side, I'm going to take this and kind of just give it a little bit more thickness and accommodate the ear a little bit more. And give him a little bit more of back of the head because it feels like it's too short for the whole thing. So it might mean this going down a little bit more and kind of pushing it around. There you go. And like I said, I'm just going around, just nothing, just putting what I know. And that might be a little bit too big of a clavicle. But we can shorten that later. We're just putting everything in there so we know where everything goes, right? I do like that, and I was reading this, that Krampus in the way, way older folklore, if I can say that word, folklore, um, he had 4 horns, and I thought it was interesting. I was like, that's a little bit too much, but I like that." And they were, like, all, twisted and everything, which is why I like a lot of this concept right here. And I'll show you guys in a second how I would just do them really simple or quickly with one of the brushes that Maya provides. I mean, ZBrush. ZBrush provides. I'm thinking about Maya. So I still want a little bit more of a pointy chin, so I'm gonna separate that, and I think that the geometry might be a little bit too low for this, but like I said, focus on one thing and then kind of go around everything so you don't. There you go. That's better. Ooh, the nose. Don't forget the nose, Valerie. So the nose on this one is a little bit more bigger and like pointing down. I love that. I love that. So I'm gonna do that one to be able to do that really quickly. Actually, we have a question. Ooh. So how would you compare this to Blender if you've used both ZBrush and Blender? Uh I have used Blender before and I like it. But since I kind of started it since the beginning, like my studies and everything back a couple of years ago, I started in ZBrush. I kind of fell in love with it. But I know Blender's free, I believe. And I would say preference, to be honest. Like I've had students that they love Blender, they do everything in Blender, and they hate ZBrush, or not like them, right? And vice versa. So it's like both can get you the result that you want. It just depends on which one you like, to be honest, preference. But like I said, because I started in ZBrush, I kind of just stay here forever, I guess. It's the love of my life in a program. But try both and see which one you like. Try both and see which one gives you the results you want. And then the other question is, do you rig the mouth with bones? You would create the model in a neutral pose with everything inside, and yes, they would do the rigger would do their own bones and everything, so it can open, close, and if it has a tongue, they would add those controls in there. But yes, there you go. I love that his like mouth is kind of like not straight and it's just wiggly. I love that. So I'm going to add that too. With the mouth, I mean with the nose. Boom, boom, boom. And when I start seeing this breaking up, this is when you know it's a little bit too low. So let's say you're just trying to create the shape of the nostril on the nose. I'm going to go a little bit more like an elf on the nose. I like that. Like an evil elf. I'm going to keep this really short right here in the bridge from your brow to the bridge because he is kind of like wrinkling it. To get that effect, I'm going to keep it short in there and not give it too much space because then when I go to my secondary and even tertiary detail, then I can just get the wrinkles way faster like that. So I'm going to keep it shorter there. We might need to move it here a little bit more, but that's fine. At this point, you know what? I'm going to add the eye so it doesn't look like super, super intense. So we're going to go to Subtool, append, and we're just going to append a sphere. You can, in the future, if you had your own eyes, you can just append them there. You don't have to actually, do the sphere. I know somewhere in my collections I have eyes that I created just because I can just pop them in and then switch them there if I needed to. And they actually have the whole eye structures instead of just a sphere. Just letting you guys know to do that. So I'm going to approximate one 2 and 3 eyes, right? And then just put it in there. Try to keep it center. You don't want to have the eyeball over here in your cheekbone and just only a little bit of your eye covering that eye cavity, right? You want to actually have the eyeball how it goes in your human head. Also, you don't want to, and I'm just going to mention that because I've seen that a couple of times. You don't want to have just one eye like that. I've seen that and I'm like, yeah, how would that work? But it happens. So just be careful with that. I'm just going to center it as much as I can to right now because I might move it later. I always do. It's not like center forever there. So after I do that, I'm going to go here and actually I have the button at the top, but for you guys to know, geometry, modify topology, and then we're going to do mirror and weld, and that will just automatically mirror it to the side. So now from there, what I want to do, and I do want to make sure this goes a little bit out too, because it still feels flat. I'm going to push it from every angle. And the head still feels a little bit too tiny. So I'm going to take the whole thing here. Actually, I might just move it, to be honest. And I'm going to make this big. And it's okay to not be married to something 100%. I just want to see how it looks if I would put it a little bit extreme, on the extreme side. Maybe instead of moving it, like I said, I'm going to actually sculpt it. And I don't want to give him like this guy right here has a very square head for me. Trying to avoid that really quick. Because I want more elongated but still thick, if that makes sense. So make sure you go all the way around. Oh, another question. So how long did it take you to get used to ZBrush hotkeys? Oh, that's a good question. Let me think. It took me a bit, not in the sense of the brushes, but because I used to be Mac and then I switched to, so I was in between Mac and Windows. My brain kind of just switches sometimes. It took me a bit. But if you practice it every day, at least like maybe 2 hours, to be honest, it's going to be really easy. It's not going to be too long. It's not going to take you, it shouldn't take you months. So just make sure to practice this. They're not hard. And also what I did too is I always try to, have flashcards, like the most important ones, on the side. That would also help. So don't worry about it. Just do it and you'll see that it won't be that long. Cool. And I'm going to accommodate him a little bit more to the side angle because I feel like it just feels a little center on the front. Sometimes you'll see that you get too center on one view and your model will start seeing it from other views. Like it will start feeling it. Because it might look flat from the side, or that's why I always try to go around on the views and seeing that really quick. Also adding to that hotkey question, for example, if you like certain brushes, just learn those brushes. I don't know the whole brush collection hotkeys. I just know the ones that I use, which is mostly like 3, 4, 5-ish. And if anything, you can just hit B and you'll have them here. So you can look it up. For example, if you're going to do snake hook, then you press S and then you'll see them right here. So whatever letter of the start of whatever brush you're looking for. So most of the time, because sometimes if you have custom brushes in there, it kind of moves them around. So be careful with that. But other than that, don't worry about it. You got this. So now I'm going to start kind of adding a little bit more of the neck that I took off earlier because they just look really, really like together. Where are my eyes? Cool. I do like to, from here, then put the teeth and put everything in there so I know where this is going, right? And I'm gonna get the ears out a little bit more because they feel too centered. So I'm taking the move tool and kind of just pushing it around. And you'll see me play with the skull again. Sometimes you're like, I like that, and then you're like, I don't know if that looks good. So you just go around, and it's part of being the artist, so it happens. Okay, don't worry about it. The ears are a little bit too straight, so I'm just gonna slightly get them a little bit. There you go. So from here, I want to, I do want to start giving him more of a snout out. So I'm just going to push this slightly from the side because I haven't given a little bit too much left on the side. So I'm going to push this to the front slightly more and everything kind of rounded out so it doesn't feel too indented yet. So I'm going to take a move tool and just push it out. I'm not going to do or try to do my eyelids at this stage because it's so low, right? You see how low it is? They will just Dynamesh again if I Dynamesh. So from here, what I want to do now is I am going to just do one tooth really quick. So append. We can go with a sphere. And then I'm going to do it really simple. I'm not going to go too extreme on it. I'm going to use the pinch tool, which is BPI on the Subtool palette or the tool palette, brush palette. And just going to kind of do it like that. He has weird teeth and they're not all the same. So I'm just going to slightly actually back out on that. Keep it way too simple. And then that way I'm just going to place them and then adjust them gradually. Because if obviously I do this one really thin and I try to place it over there, the other ones might be thicker, so then I would have to thicken them, just keep it simple, right? And this is the blockout phase, so nothing. There you go. That's fine. That's fine for now. Might be a little bit too close mouth, so I might actually take this here. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm going to move it and see what we can do with that because I feel like it's a little bit too open and I want more of a, like I said before, pointy chin. So from here, what we're going to do now, because I still feel like it's too low, we're going to go to Dynamesh. So geometry, Dynamesh, and then we're going to up that resolution. Try and test it on yours. There's no specific number, like I said before, so I just go up, make sure that it's not too high. And then that's a little bit too high. So maybe like 80 should be good. That's better. Yeah, that's better. It was a little bit too high. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper on the mouth just because it's too shallow. There you go. That's better. So now that I up the resolution a little bit, it's just cleaning more of the areas that I already did, right? Adding some more areas that might be too low to kind of get at first glance. Adding some volume, rounding out volumes in certain areas. like the nose and your brow area. And then I want to actually make the nostrils finally, because I actually have some resolution for them a little bit more. So don't forget about the nostrils, and don't forget to push them out from the back as much as you can. Get that nice crease in there. Sometimes I see students too much kind of just having that melted in. So you have like a nice nose from the front, but then you see it from the side, it's just like melted. So just make sure to have that crease there in your future projects. And I'm actually not liking that, so I'm going to smooth it out. Might be too low, but it's okay. Get the angle of that nose. Might want to have a little bit more space right here before your lips start. There you go. It's kind of breaking a little bit there. I'm going to go around the mouth a little bit to clean it up. Going to do some of my muscle structures in there. And I'm going to make sure that I flatten this. And what I do with the chin is I just take a move tool. I take 2 points. So for example, I take 2 points here and I just slightly pull them down. If it's too much too chiny or square chin for you, then just kind of move it around a little bit more, but still keeps the shape from the front. Trying to make it a little bit open. The geometry is fighting me, and it will happen, so don't worry. Just kind of play with it around. Make sure you Dynamesh it. And then I'm kind of going to make that a little bit thicker from the front because somehow it feels really, really thin. So from there, what I want to do now is kind of just focus on the eyes. They're my favorite part of the whole face, to be honest. So let's focus on the eyes, kind of getting that nice lids in there. So what I do to do that is I do it a couple of ways. Most of the time, I just take a Damien standard, right? And I just go around the eye and kind of just do a line. And it doesn't need to be perfect, right? Not right now. It just needs to be really, really tight to your eyeball, right? So that's why I do that. And then for the bottom one, I cover the upper one. I do a line at the bottom and I take the move tool. And that's why I cover the upper part, because I just like push it in. That way you won't have an eyeball and just like lids like that, like really open, right? You actually would have the nice creases round. Boom. And then this way you still have almond shape of the eye, right? You can adjust it to be the creature that you want, right? But always try to keep it really, really basic, simple, and then you can just move it around afterwards a little bit more in the secondary face, I would say. Make sure it's not too deep on the inside. You want to have at least like maybe like tip of the finger, half tip of the finger from here to here. Depends on the person. I just test it out and see if in the creature works for me. Sometimes you want to do it a little bit more Neanderthal here in the sense of really, really thick and out. But you still don't want the eyeball to be really, really half of your skull, right? Like keep it in between that. Boom, boom, boom. From there, he looks like he is just looking at me like sus, you know, like we can fix that later. We just needed the structure there and some eyes. So from there, I'm going to give a little bit touch up to the ears here because they still feel too short, right? I want his ears to be bigger and kind of slumping a little bit. This one's look like a younger elf or something. So we're just going to slightly push this out. Give it space for the inside of the ear. I'm going to drink some water while I read the question. So how long did it take you to learn anatomy? It took me a while. And we keep learning forever. So, but the basics, it's weird, but like I read a lot and watch a bunch of videos, and of course my instructors when I came to Full Sail University helped a lot. So I would say it's really hard to pinpoint it, to be honest. Because like I said, we're always still learning everything. So but it wasn't too long. That's why I kind of chose to be a character artist, to be honest, because when I came, I was interested in characters and I was interested in environments. And I kind of had to, decide which side I wanted to do. And I decided because, and I'm doing this with a clay buildup, make sure before you do this that I'm doing, go here to brush. And you're going to go whoop, at the bottom, auto masking, back face masking. That will prevent, it will mask the back and it will prevent your mesh from kind of just like whoop, going really thin on the ears and stuff like that, thin areas. Like I was saying, I kind of decided that I wanted to be a character artist because I grasped the anatomy really quick. So, and I didn't turn it in. Make sure you turn it on per brush because it turns on per brush. There you go. That way you won't have any weird issues when you Dynamesh. Sometimes if it goes too thin and you Dynamesh, it just makes holes. So, and that's how it happened. That's literally how it happened. I kind of grasped the anatomy really quickly. I kind of had fun doing characters, and it depends on how much time you put in it. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you put a lot of time to the anatomy, you will learn it really quickly. And it's not always about knowing the names or anything. That's great. More than doctors, we're kind of like artists, so it's kind of knowing how it acts, where to put it, how they work. That's gonna help you out. So put the time, and I promise you, it's gonna practice. It's gonna help you out. You're gonna learn it really quickly, and that's still a little bit too thick. But yeah, so from here, I'm just kind of pushing and pulling and kind of putting some shapes in there to kind of, have something in the areas. I might need to rotate because you see how the ears look so straight still from that view. I would like to have them slightly rotated. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select them, and make sure you select them better than I did. Wait, that's fine. I'm going to invert that. I'm going to hit rotate, and instead of using the gizmo, which is this one, I'm going to hit Y, and I'm going to use the transpose tool. I like this one because you can click from here to here, whatever shape you have masked, hit the R, and then that way you can rotate in that pivot area. It's just easier for me. And most people don't know there's two. This one's like the oldie, and then this one's like the new one, which works too. It's just preference for me, I guess. But you'll notice a difference slightly. So when I see it from this view, I want it slightly to be a little bit more back, the ears. And maybe rotate them. Ooh, we'll see. But rotate them in this view. There you go. You see how it kind of just changed that? Maybe too much. That's fine. Oh, don't be like me. I press V and it just turns that into gray. So from here, I'm gonna start actually adding the tongue, because that's one of the things about Krampus. It has a really long tongue. I chose this one more than this one right here because this one is like split. I love that. So I was like, yeah. So I'm gonna do that one. So for that, what I can do or what I can use, and let's see if I can find it here because I always lose it. It's always somewhere here. I have a couple of brushes that kind of switch between my other brushes just because I have a lot of brushes. Also, little tip for you in the future. If you're going to become a character artist and you're going to use a couple of brushes, just make sure you do a like brush collection, put them in there, kind of. Oh, it's right here. Do you see? Couldn't see it because it was behind that. So I'm going to use the curve tube brush. You can see it on the left side right there. And you'll see what it does. It does literally a tube. It depends on the size of the brush, so I'm going to decrease that way. And I might need to turn off. Actually, no, if I leave it split, I like that. Ooh. I actually like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, from the middle, it's too split, so it might be a little bit too split. I might need to do it manually myself. Or, you know what? I'm going to do it really, oh, cool. Don't worry, that happens. Approximately slightly long. That might need to be a little bit longer, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do that, right? And then I'm going to boom, because I like that. I'm going to slightly rotate it so it's one in the inside and still separate it in the outside. And I'm going to rotate it to shape it around. So if I do this, for example, let's say I want them to be moved differently. So what I want to do is I want to use polygroups. So I'm going to go right here to the right side, auto groups, and you'll see how everything turns into a different color. I just want to like slightly, if I want to move something later, I like to have that there. Oh, make sure you save, right? So let's save. Let's do that. Don't forget to save. Save as. I'm going to save it as Krampus 1. And it's somewhere there. I'll put it in the desktop for now. I know I have a specific folder for it. So from there, you still see how they're separate. So now I can smooth them out and you see how it separates at the tip. That was the idea. So that way keeps it together here, separate at the tip. And then if we need to move it, then I would just take the Damien standard. I said that so confident. The snake hook. There you go. The snake hook. And just move it around to give it a little bit more weight. So it's not just like hanging there, right? So from there, I'm just gonna slightly shape it. Remember, we're still in the basic. So there it is. I'm gonna smooth it out. I'm actually gonna keep it a little bit more thin at the bottom, but I can do that later with a pinch. I can just pinch them, you see? And I want to keep that line in the center. I'm going to use that for later so I don't have to create it myself. It's just there. So from there, I'm going to start placing the other teeth just to have something there. And don't forget about the gums. With the gums, what I mostly tend to do is like a quick and dirty boom, because remember, this is for sculpting purposes. If it was a little bit more, if you were going to do a character that opens a mouth and you're going to see, their gums and everything, then make sure you create it a little bit more clean, right? And well done. So what I do is I just take a cylinder, I push it in here where I would want my gums to be on the creature. I'm going to put them a little bit more inwards. I'm going to Dynamesh that really, really low so it doesn't keep the edges too much. So you see how it breaks the edges? So now I'm going to turn on symmetry and kind of just smooth that out. And there you go. That's the round of the mouth. So from here, what I do is I start placing the teeth wherever I want to, however your monster is seeing it. And this one's the one that's a little bit wonky. Don't worry about the thickness too much. You can just adjust it slightly or adjust it manually later. And while you put these, make sure you, and I'm going to do this side. This one's a little tiny one. Don't worry about that because I'll go through the gums and actually make the space for them. I'm just placing them here for now. Boom, boom, boom. And I am hitting control, and that's what's making this duplicate. You can always go to the side right here under Subtool and duplicate it there manually. But if you hit control, it will just, and move it, right? It would actually duplicate it on the spot. And you see how they might be a little bit too thick from the side, but it's okay. So I'm gonna put that one there. This one's a little bit bigger. And I'm gonna put it like around there. And there's a really, really tiny one on this side. And that's why I said keep the teeth, and it's like slightly crooked too. Remember, we're doing him demon with some goat in there, right? This is more of a demon still, but we're trying to get those demon teeth to look kind of disgusting, right? So crook them. There you go. Rotate them slightly so they're not perfect. So maybe leave some teeth out, right? From there, what I'm going to do is one of two things. I either take one tooth and rotate it, put it at the bottom, or, which I sometimes most of the time do, I duplicate this teeth and I go right here to deformation on the right side. I use this mirror and that will mirror it from position. I'm going to pick Y, up and down, right? And we're going to go mirror. And you'll see how it pops out over here. It's fine. We can just relocate your pivot and then push it down. And like I said, this sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, because it depends on if the teeth, you have to fix them too much or not. But you see how you have two-ish here? 2, 3? Then we have these guys here. And then these guys that go or are intersecting, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and invert the mask, and I'm just going to push them to the side. That way we can use them for the other teeth. And because they're not the same, we kind of slightly rotate them and then we can move them later. It's going to create your teeth way, way faster. Or your teeth placement. Same with the gums, right? I would just do the gums from the top, put them at the bottom, move it around. I do try to use a lot of the things that I already have in the scene, so it keeps me less from going to the Rey and then appending and, So if you have that mindset from using things that you already have on the scene, then it will go a little bit faster, trust me. And then I can put it like that. And then I will get rid of the bottom of this, right? We don't need that. We only need the edge. So both of them, you can get rid of the sky or the bottom of them. Don't really necessary for this part. Keep them a little bit thinner, not too thick in between them. And then we can just adjust this really quick. And that's how I would do my gums. Make sure to get the geometry Dynamesh slightly up on that, because when we're going to do, oh my gosh, that's a little bit too much. That's better. When we're going to take the Damien standard and kind of just make the edge of it. Kind of just penetrate those in there. Boom, boom, boom. And then similar with these. Make sure you have symmetry off for this because obviously some areas aren't symmetrized, so it will look a little bit weird. If you have your teeth symmetrized, then go for it. But if not, then turn it off and kind of just adjust those manually. And this one's a little bit out, so I'm actually gonna push that a little bit out. There you go. But you see how we start seeing something in there. And I'm not too worried about the inside because I'm gonna either paint it a little bit black, you know, a darker color, not black, but just something a little bit more darker. So that way it just fades into existence in there. Might want to test that later, but from here, BDS, which is Damien Standard, and I'm gonna adjust the nose, which I was trying to do earlier, and I kind of went to the teeth. So we're gonna do heesh, dish, and kind of point it out. Make sure you always also do the nostrils. I mentioned the back. Also make sure you do a little bit more of a deeper nostril. You don't want to have it too narrow. You can always paint it same as the mouth. It doesn't need to be too, you know, you don't want it to go into the face like too much, right? But something where I don't like where that's going. Something where, there you go. It's just too low. Cool. So from here, what I want to do is I want to extend this. I want to push this down. I want to push this down. It's just movements that I see that I'm like, okay, I need to adjust that and just to adjust that too. So we have another question. So let me see. Wait, there you go. Have you ever done stylized sculpting? The view is interested in sculpting anime stylized character. Oh, the viewer. Oh, so you're interested. Oh yeah. Yes, that's mostly what I do, to be honest. I do a lot of cutesy, too cartoony type of characters. So yes, I definitely, and I've seen a lot of students do cool anime ones. So yeah, I would go for it. The only difference that I see, and I will definitely tell you now, is that cartoony characters are a little bit harder to do if you don't know your human anatomy. Because you might think, oh, it's really simple. Oh, you know, it's easy to do. But it's actually a little bit harder because you don't know what to hide. You don't know what to soften to create that anime look. And that's why I would suggest if you're going to do those, at least make sure you do know about your anatomy, your actual realistic anatomy. So that way you can, boom, when you go to the simplistic side, you know what to simplify. And it's just not going to look like a weird, you know, face with everything indented in, which I've seen a couple of times. But does that make sense? I hope that does. The ear's a little bit too big. So from here, what I want to do now is I'm going to pump the resolution a little bit more on the Dynamesh. And then I'm going to start cleaning things up. Before I do that though, horns, right? Horns. So I will do the same thing, to be honest, that I did with the tongue. I would just use the curve brush. But there is a brush here called Curve Alpha, which is technically the same thing. It just has a different alpha on it that gives you like that star-ish look, which I was like, yo, that's perfect for the horns that we have in here, right? So what I want to do for that is I want to make sure that I'm on a better thickness of it. I don't want to go too thin because then I don't want to, actually that's not bad. There you go. That's better. Select the size of the brush that you want and then just click and drag. I might actually do them a little bit thicker so I don't have, yeah, that's better. so I don't have to adjust them. And then if you go to the end of the curve, once you draw it, and you see that little red line, that means you can keep drawing in it. So try to make sure you adjust the angle there, because sometimes it's a little weird to catch. And you see how it just acts really weird sometimes. If I don't go, that's actually acting weird. But you know what? I'm just gonna push it up. Because if I need to, because it's not cooperating, which sometimes happens, you just gotta go around. That's fine. I'm gonna settle that in there. From there, I'm just gonna slightly move it because I feel like they're too front. I want it slightly in between that. And then, because yes, they're a little bit too thin, like you can cut your hands in that. But I'm gonna use that to my advantage, because if you notice the reference, right, it has certain areas that look like that. So I just gotta make sure that the areas that I choose to be thicker are chosen. So top right here, you see how that's a little bit more. Make sure you do Dynamesh though, because okay, so issue here. I'm going to shift F so we see the polygroups. Because you created, or I created that curve in the head that I already had, it will be together. Right now, I don't want my horns to be together. Most of the time, some horns are together, some aren't. So just make sure to be aware of that. You don't always have to have it together, Dynamesh, or together with your head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift F and I'm going to see, and I'm going to make sure that my horns are separated from this for now. So I don't Dynamesh accidentally and they just merge into my skull, which I don't want for this one. Some concepts do have, them kind of together. So, sorry, something in my eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave that masked, right? And I'm going to go split. So Subtool, split. And I'm going to do split masked. Yeah, sure. So now they're not together, they're separate. And so they're not everything like super, super thin. What I'm going to do, so I'm going to do deformation tab. And there's like a little nice inflate balloon, and you'll see what it does. It kind of inflates everything, right? I just slightly want to do that to add more thickness and not be so thin. From there, I'm going to take the clay buildup and I'm going to choose, like I was telling you guys, choose the area you're going to do. Make sure it's Dynameshed. Not too low on this one. Oh gosh, there you go. And then kind of choose the side that you see on the reference that has that nice, because you don't want to lose the contrast of the planes, right? So that's what I'm trying not to do. That's why I chose that. If not, I would have just chosen the random curve one that we use on the tongue. I'm trying not to lose that. But we still need this to be thicker because it definitely is thicker. If you need them to actually be a little bit more thicker, you can move them around. And I know this has a nice curve, so I'm going to go kind of just move it around with the snake hook. I don't tend to use the move too much just because it acts weird on it. But just to start, and just make sure you go around it so it's not just that side, right? For the I actually might want them to be a little bit out, and then kind of push them around. For the fur and everything, I'm still deciding what I'm going to do with it because I feel like this one's too furry for me. And I've seen a lot, and that's how we go around. You see how there's certain areas that you might want to choose, that I might want to choose, like things like this. And even in the movie, it's not the whole thing. Slight hair, slight beard. I would love that more than just fur everywhere. that's what I'm thinking. Something like simple and still feels slightly old and slightly creepy. So yes, for that, we're good here. There's a few teeth missing. It's fine. I actually like that. So let me go back and see if there's any other oh yes, there is. I'm in character 1 right now. I have seriously no experience working with a Wacom. It happens. It's okay. I was there. Can you recommend any good additional tutorials with ZBrush for just getting more comfortable with basic functions? I would say so. There's this thing called speed sculpts. I don't know if you guys have like seen them in YouTube around. I would say do that. Like let's say you sit down one day and then just do a speed sculpt. That's gonna get you a little bit more familiar with the Wacom. And I've been there, trust me. I was like, how do I use this? How does this connect to this? I was there. Trust me, I was there. And I've actually had different ones too. I've had the monitor ones and I had the tiny ones. So I get it. It's gonna be you practicing speed sculpts. Go into ZBrush, do 5 minutes of whatever sculpt you find or concept. Let's say you find Krampus. You're like, okay, I'm gonna give this 10 minutes. Do 10 minutes of that. Whatever comes out doesn't need to be finished. The point is to practice. And that's what I did a couple of times. Like I have a few of different concepts that I see on Pinterest, to be honest. I'm like, I go to Pinterest and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Maybe faces. I like faces a lot. So I have a bunch of faces from the same person, different times, just to practice it. Just to, 1, practices the anatomy, and 2, practices how you get used to the Wacom and, ZBrush itself. So that's my recommendation to you. Go to YouTube, see how the speed sculpts work, and then try to do it yourself. That's what's going to be the most helpful, to be honest. And it was for me. So from this, I'm going to do a quick BPR render. Best possible render in ZBrush. It kind of just, renders it really slightly faster. I just want to see how it's looking with the shadows and everything. So with that, I'm going to start adjusting some things I see. I want this to be really reeking. There you go. Like it's folding, right? While he opens his mouth. So I want to make sure that is created. So I'm going to go around and kind of get those shapes a little bit more intense. And I feel like this might go a little bit too out and a little bit more too up. But those are changes you're going to notice slightly there. I might actually, let me do this really quick and kind of push this down. And then kind of push this to the side. I want to give him more space there because I feel like it's just like head and nothing at the bottom. So a little bit more of that there. There you go. If you can always go back and kind of just compare those, but you see how it felt like it was crunching a little bit too much. Give it a little bit more space. I want him still to be young, old, creepy, but not like crouching too much. Or, yeah. So I hope that answered your question or that helped. It's just going to be you kind of just first choosing the brushes that you want to use and kind of just adjusting that and practicing it in ZBrush and then just doing quick stuff. It will get you really, really loose on ZBrush there. So I do want the horns to have this nice curvature around them to kind of feel that they're connected. I will create that. I'm going to take a Damien standard and I'm just going to go around it And I'm gonna actually keep that nice weird angle there. I like that. Not in everywhere. I don't want it to feel like a star or anything, like there's a star there. In certain parts, yes. Make sure you Dynamesh. If not, you're gonna have those weird areas. And then we're gonna keep going. Cool. And then we're gonna go and make it feel a little bit more integrated. I can always adjust that. I can maybe look for like goat horns and stuff like that and kind of see how they have it a little bit more integrated here. Always make sure you have your references on the side. And if you're like, oh, I want to do that, go look that up and then do it in your model. This is a little bit too square for me, so I'm just gonna push this down a little bit. I want to keep this a little bit round still, but not like round from the front, more like just in the brow ridge area. A little bit more intense. There you go. That would be better. Yeah, I think I like that. Round this out a little bit. Cool. So from here, what I want to do then is now keep continuing this up, right? So it's going to be a lot of me adjusting the eyes, me adjusting the nose. Getting those folds, because don't forget that we are still kind of creating this shapes, right? So I'm still going to identify what those folds might be. I might do this old looking, like, let me see. Like, I want to have this nice wrinkled mouth. I don't want to have it like, I like this. So I might actually do, that's why I had this here, because I might want to get some of these, especially the bags. I was like, maybe I want some baggy eyes, right? So I'm going to just take the K buildup and just slightly get this eye cavity some space, because later when I'm on my secondary, I'm just going to add a line there, add some bags, volumize them, and they're going to come out naturally. But at least you have space there, right? Because what I see students mostly do is they just have them added to your cheeks. So it's like cheeks and then like super extreme backs like that. They don't feel like they're in the eye cavity, right? So you want to make sure that you have this first flattened out, and then you build them in, and then you line them up to kind of just give them the shape. Because they're not all the way around that, right? They're actually their own space. Very, very thin skin in there. So another question, do you prefer monitor tablet or no monitor tablet for ZBrush? Any pros, any cons? I would say if you can get the monitor tablet, I think it's going to be a little bit easier for you, because you're like right there and you're like this. Probably not for your back, but for you, like being closer and kind of just feeling it a little better. I prefer that. But because obviously if you're going to be traveling, or if you're going to be in different areas, you might not want to be with your monitor, like around. So I would say both. I would say have the ability for both. Preference will be for you which one you like. Like I said, with mine, and I don't know where that came from. Let me see. Oh, that's better. With mine, it's just whichever I have in hand. And I know here at Full Sail we have the Wacoms and everything, monitors, which I love, and you can just be like that. And they also provide you with the expense one. I always get the name expense, one of those. So it's just gonna be, I would say, do both. Get acquainted with both, because you don't never know if at work you might need to use one or don't have the other one, just. But at least for me, I like the monitor ones better. Boom. I'm going to put this in here. Try not to break. my eyelids because that's what I was going for slightly there for a minute. And get that mouth a little bit flatter because I like the fact that I was going to do a more older like mouth area. So it's going to be a little bit more heavy. It's going to be a little bit more thin. And to be honest, I'm going to open the mouth later a little bit more. I feel like it still feels a little bit awkward in the sense of everything together moving, but I can always adjust that later when I already have my scale and my proportions and everything put wherever. I can always be like, okay, I don't like how this works, move it around, adjust it slightly, and that's it. Instead of trying to build it every time, that's easier for me at least. So I was gonna say that. There's barely any space here, which I actually like because there should be a little bit more space here, but I'm gonna keep it like that. Because I want his mouth and everything to be kind of together. Another question. I want to drink some water while I do that too. How do you put the color on the character? You know what? I'm actually going to jump to that really quick because I wanted to do this goat's eye. That's in this. And we can do it for the eyes already because the eyes are technically finished. The only thing you need to do is just put the color in them, right? The texture. So what you want to do is, for example, let's say we're going to do the eyes or we're going to do something. We're going to do the Damien standard brush. And I'm going to, before doing that, saving. Boop. And I'm going to make sure that I press spacebar. You have some options in here. I'm going to make sure that in that brush, which is going to be the Damien standard, we're going to turn off Z-Sub, which is going to add, right, geometry. And we're going to make sure RGB is on. That way you can actually, paint color in it. So what I want to do is, for example, let's say I want to do a blackish streak goat eye. That will happen. It will flood everything. Don't worry. Just paint on something and rotate it and make sure that you have symmetry on. So paint on the eye, rotate it, or it should go away. There you go. If it doesn't go away, then just go to white, but it should go away. So let's say that that was not a darker black. That was interesting, but okay, cool. So if you want to erase something, let's say you want to erase that, go back to white and then erase it. If you want to do another streak like I was trying to do, you can just, ooh, that's a little more centered maybe. There you go. That's better. Maybe a little bit thinner, but that's fine. I'm going to do it thicker and then I'm going to like adjust it. Ooh, creepy. Maybe a little bit slightly slanted so it's not like perfectly straight. Play with it, but that's how you would do it. Just adding the color. Then if you're finished with this, make sure you turn off RGB and then turn on C-Sub or C-Add, whichever you use first. And that's how you do. That's how you, add some color in there. I did black, but you can just choose whatever color you want and just paint it. I would suggest you do that for example, if you're adding a color and you want to blend two colors, you want a spacebar, hit shift, and you see how it gives you other options, how this is moving. Because the shift button, you can use it to smooth out the colors, but you have to make sure that you're holding shift, spacebar, and then turn off C-Add, because if not, it's gonna smooth your model. And then you're gonna make sure RGB is on, because that way you will actually smooth the colors and not your model. Sorry. I hope that helps. But that's the process of how you would do it in here in ZBrush. If you were gonna do it in other programs, like it's done for games. Sorry. You would do it in Substance Painter, for example, or you would use another program. So from here, it's starting to look right. It's starting to look. what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a clay buildup and then just start adjusting some areas, going to the main reference that I'm going for, and I'm gonna up the subdivision level. I mean, not subdivision level, the Dynamesh. We'll talk about subdivision levels later. And why is... Okay, cool. So you notice that my tongue and my face are together. I don't want that. So I'm going to click, shift, control, and I'm going to select the tongue, and it's going to hide it. Now from there, I'm going to go split hidden. I have it right here, or it's under Subtool, split. And I'm going to split hidden, and that will split the tongue into a separate subtool. And now I have the face, tongue separate. Wanna keep those separate. It's gonna make your life easier. Eyes, some horns, teeth, tongues, you want to keep those separate. Unless, for example, if the tongue was like going out and then kind of just blending into the body, then might as well have it blended if it looks better for you. But most of the time, those things like that just get separated. So with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly scrunch this up a little bit so it feels like he's like going up. And I actually like those goat eyes. It's weird. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper around the eye area because it still feels like there's some bridging. Like this should be a little bit more extreme. I want him to have cheekbones, you know, like I could cut you with my cheekbones. So that's what I would do. I'm gonna Dynamesh this tongue because it's annoying me that it just feels a little bit too unresolved compared to everything else. Okay, so if this happens, and I'm just gonna, tip on this. If this ever happens, for example, you're doing a character and you have your hands, right? You have the hands of the character, and you turn on Dynamesh and they web. They kind of just mesh together. Make sure you give it space. So it's going to be in between you giving the hand space and not them being like that together. And the resolution. So it's going to be give it space, resolution. And that's going to keep them from webbing, right? So just make sure. On the tongue, doesn't really matter because it's going to be one thing and then I'm just going to slightly split it at the bottom. I really don't mind it. And if it always splits too much or too low, you see how I'm just moving it up? I'm literally just pushing it up and then Dynamesh it, and that's it. Like it's not an issue. And I can actually pinch it so it's a little bit closer. Take a VSH, kind of just make sure that it still keeps that curve. It's too flat, right? And I'm actually gonna lower it a little bit more. I don't feel like it's long enough, Flatten it so it feels like it's coming out of the mouth. And flatten it from the side. It might be a little bit too thick. So I'm taking the pinch tool and just like thinning it out. But you see how, boom, first things first, block it out. Second, we're adjusting the shapes. That's what you kind of want to do. You want to first have everything in there and then maybe the teeth are not too crooked or maybe this is too thick. So that's the process you want to do. So you actually have a better result instead of having everything just like jumbled and not like finished, if that makes sense. Or not with the expectations of the shapes that you want it. So everything here, to be honest, whenever I decide what I'm going to do with the fur or if I'm going to add some nice hair, it will look different. Like this right here, it's not going to look as like round or like there's nothing there because I'm going to add stuff there. I actually might, you know what? Let's go here. I want to do this, but I want to add slightly like a nice hair. You know, when you have like a receding hairline, I like that. So I might want to add that here really quick. And this is how I would do the hair if it was like together with this guy. I get an in-between. I either do it together with the sculpt or I do it as a separate thing and kind of blend it together. your decision, whatever you have time for. Having it separate is a little bit faster because you can see the shape. And before I do this, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to duplicate the model because I might not like it. Things may happen, you know. So I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to do it on the duplicate. And it's going to be this whole thing. But how I would do it, I would give my model the thickness of the hair, the shaping of the hair that I would want him to have, right? Let's say, for example, all this is going to be my hair. So I'm just going to do it in there. And it's probably going to be the whole thing. To be honest, I would just add something instead of like, you know, doing it with a clay buildup. But as an example of how I would do it for you guys, I would take this. I would have a little bit more resolution. I wouldn't do this too much in Dynamesh, to be honest. I would do it in subdivision levels, which will give you a little bit more of polygons in there. And this is an example. I would see where the hair would go, and I would slightly adjust the shape, give it a little bit of more depth. Maybe he's going to have a widow's peak, who knows? And then I'm going to slightly get the edges out. And I might use something like a weave tool or something like that, where BW is the weave tool. And like I said, I wouldn't be doing this in such a low resolution. I would be a little bit more high. I just want you to guys to know how I would kind of think about that, right? Let's say, for example, I do this, and this is really quick so you notice. You see how the weave tool kind of has nice hair strands? So I would use that to my advantage to kind of get that edge, and be careful with the symmetry in the middle to get that edge nicely there. And that's how I would do the whole thing, but just shaping it better. Sculpted on the model, and I would break symmetry certain areas and kind of just sculpt it in. If it needs to be more intense, then go with the Damien standard and kind of just, you know, intensify that. Intensity here also helps. You see how it's a way more extreme now. I do it in little by little. I just don't go crazy, right? So this is going to be a little bit more in whenever I finish my head, to be honest. I would leave it for a little bit later. But like I said, I just want you guys to know I wouldn't be doing subdivisions and Dynamesh at the same time. Just by the way, I did hit it so you guys see the resolution here, but it's one or the other. Most of the time it's Dynamesh first, clean it up with the sear meshing, and then you subdivide, and then you get that nice resolution with the subdivision levels. So from here, let me see if there's any other questions. Before I do that, I'm going to actually move this down because I'm going to... Oh, it reset it. Sometimes that happens. It resets my lasso tool. Kind of annoying, but it happens. And I want to make him look a little bit more mad. So push that out, push this out. Now he's looking a little bit more mad. So, question, are you on Discord? Can students add you on there? Would they be able to? Please bounce some questions off you and now and then. Yeah, I'm definitely on Discord. Like, if you guys are on the wholesale game art, you can add me, or I mean, I'm there, so you can just send me a message. If you're in any other classes, you can also be like, hey, Valerie, and add me on those classes, and I can be like, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. What else? A few now and then, but yeah, I don't mind. Like, I don't mind questions. I still have alumni that ask me some questions. I'm like, yeah, cool. It's going this way. It's going this way. You know. So I don't really mind. I really do love seeing your guys' work. So, and the progress, I love that. Because I'm on two classes that are one in the beginning and one at the end of the characters. I definitely see the progress of most students, and it's so good. It's so good. Especially in character stuff. like I said, adjust certain things that you might want to see, might not want to see on your model. Maybe I want his jaw to be more extreme. I'm gonna put that in there if I like it. Yeah, that's fine. Do 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 do. If you can't find me on Discord, by the way, I do have an Instagram. You can follow me there and be like, Valerie, I have a question. I don't mind that. So make sure to boop, boop, boop. If you have questions, let me know. Okay, cool. So I'm looking at this and I feel like this guy doesn't have any eyebrows. It might look a little weird, but it's okay. So from here, just adjusting certain areas that look or feel a little weird to me, because this is the spot where you want to kind of do it, right? You don't want to be in this spot and be like, yes, this is done, because this is where you should be adjusting things, kind of looking around, looking at different areas. I actually don't like how the back is looking, so I'm just gonna add a lot of clay in there, smooth it out. And I might do the hair and the back, so actually that might be a little bit too like that. And I don't want it to affect the whole thing, so I'm just slightly gonna have a nice hair in the back. We'll see if I give him some curls or something in there. But you see how I'm building from it a little bit more. I like that, actually. Maybe he has some nice strands going down. I would do that separate. I don't like to have everything together, but I can show you guys how it would look a little bit more. For example, this is kind of like inspiration that I would be like, okay, I'm going to do hair. This is where I would go. Okay, how would hair, this is what I think. How would hair look sculpted? And now I'm like, Pinterest or Google, sculpted hair. 3D or traditional. Traditional, if you see the masters doing traditional hair with actual clay, amazing. So things you also can learn, right? It doesn't always need to be digital. You can do traditional, look at how that works, apply it to 3D. So make sure you have that kind of variance there. So I might want to go for a little bit more of that feeling later on, because I like how that looks, but still creepy, right? I don't want it to be too curly because this guy probably doesn't brush his hair. So things like that. It's what my brain kind of thinks. Another question. So it says, how would you add fur? So with the fur, few things, few ways you can do it. One, it would be like a hair car system where you place a plane, you add opacity to it, right? An alpha, and then you would add a texture to it, and that would kind of just apply it wherever you want to place it. And that would automatically give you kind of just like whatever texture you put in it. So if you have a little bit of more of a furry texture, then it would, depending on the alpha and everything, that's how you would one way to do it. Or you have also other ways, but sculpted wise, you would do either manually, just like I was doing with the hair, adding the hairline, kind of just adding whatever shapes I want for that, and then that would be a way. And there's also they're called VDM brushes, which is brushes that are pre-made or people made them out, like they make them out there. You can Google it if you want, so you see what I mean. But what they are is they're just brushes that you click and drag, and they already have the alpha in them with the heights and everything, and you would just bloop, 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 apply the whatever fur you want, right? Or whatever fur they made that brush into. So that would be the way to do it. That's the way that I like doing it. I once had to do like a fur animal thing, and that's what I did. They provided me with the brushes, and I just placed some fur brushes. And it was like that brush, it was like one brush and it had like 4 different types of fur. So one was small, short, you know, things like that. So that would be my way to go. But whichever is easier for you. I feel like this guy should have big shoulders, like, you know, big shoulders. So things like that would be in this stage, kind of adjusting, kind of putting. Don't like this shape here. I want to have, and I might just separate this. If you're sometimes doing things and you feel like it's not going the same way, try another way. Happens to me a lot with hair sculpted like this, where I'm like, I might not like it here, separate it, inflate it slightly, boom. Gets done faster. So maybe sometimes try things differently so you know which, you know, we do recommend you do things because we've been through it, but also make sure you try them, right? Make sure you try different ways so you're not just set in one. Why is this a little bit low? So you see how it's too low here? This is already breaking. We go here. That needs the Dynamesh to go up, and we should be on. But yeah, that's the process for me. Most of the time when it's fur and stuff like that, it takes a little bit more time, so be prepared for that. Like, make sure that in the future, if you're doing a character, do your body, do your accessories, you know, and then make sure you have extra time for the hair, because it's not going to be like an hour or 2 hours, or no, it's gonna, hair takes a little bit, so make sure to always prepare for that. I actually think I might want this sculpt to be a little bit like edgy in the sense of the material. I want it maybe a little bit more. Let me make sure that he has lips, right? Because right now, got no lips. And that's going to be me kind of going around and kind of just adjusting the thickness of this, adjusting the corner of the mouth. But you see how this is now turning to be a little bit more minimal. We're mostly now in the secondary phase of this, just kind of adding the shapes that I want compared to, for example, no mouth right here. Now we have a mouth or some lips. So it's going to be that. It's going to be the process. It's not going to be really quick or anything. That's why you have to quick sculpt. So that's why you do quick sculpts, to have things quick. And you get the edge quality and everything on this too. So maybe I don't like how that mouth is going up. And I'm going to do like a really, really low square lip. There you go. Make sure you don't forget your anatomy. And if things aren't working, just move them around. Don't. There you go. That's better. I feel like that could be a little bit, I want the chin to be a little bit more flattened. So I'm just going to go flatten. Yeah. Yeah, it works for me. That's what I want. So a lot of this is going to be a little bit more thicker. But yeah, I hope that worked. That helped on the fur question. And on the Discord question and stuff like that. Make sure you ask more questions, guys, because I'm here for you. Boom, 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 boom. But great questions so far, though. Those are like, you guys make me think. Good questions. And questions that I've actually been through, too. So that's really neat. I don't know why, but I want this sculpt to be a little bit more like really edgy, and so I'm gonna soften some areas, but then you'll see me going with a flattened tool maybe, and kind of just flatten some areas to get that nice sharpness on some of the. And I noticed something, so I'm gonna go a little bit closer to this. You see how this here is still way baggy and there's nothing here? Then we go here, we add that nice shape. We line it, we take a clay, and we put that in there. I'm gonna start on this face. I'm gonna start adding certain areas that I see, like this nice skin kind of just like hanging here from one side to the other. I definitely want to have that. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna pick the areas that I see that, which is mostly here. I'm gonna say clay buildup. And I'm gonna go in first. I'm gonna go really in, and then I'm gonna take clay buildup and kind of just build it up there where I see it, approximation right here. And then I'm gonna break this up a little bit more because I feel like the nose and everything is too bulby there. So I'm gonna go in a little bit more on that. I'm gonna build that again. And I'm gonna make sure that the nose is a little bit integrated into the body right around here. So it's not just hanging there, you know? Maybe that's a little bit too deep. There you go. There you go. And then make sure that from the side it looks correct. This shouldn't be too intense like that. Should be coming out right there. And then from here, it should be smooth out into the bone. And sometimes because you guys or me or, you know, it happens, you don't give it enough space in there, it might look a little bit crunchy. If that happens, then take a move tool and kind of move everything around, and it's fine. Like, give it space, you know, maximize it so it feels like it's starting to have space in there. And I see that happening a lot when students do like anatomy and like the abs and everything. They don't give enough, like they shorten the torso, so you don't have enough space to have your abs or your bottom of the stomach. So they're like putting them there all like sandwiched, and it's like you can stretch it out, give it space, build them, and then you can move in afterwards if they need less space, right? So that's what I'm trying to do here, to give it a little bit more space here because it felt too crunchy. So from here, I'm going to start adding my folds, right? I'm going to add the breakup of the folds. And yes, to answer your question, I'm doing everything in symmetry for now. We're going to break symmetry later. And I do like doing my folds in symmetry, and then I turn off symmetry, go to the one of the sides, kind of adjust it so it's not the same. So we don't have the same, like, you know, lines. That's a little bit later. For now, I just want to break out that geometry there so it doesn't feel so flat. You see how flat that feels? And there should be a little bit more crunchy in here with this muscles right here. So we're still not in there, but it's a process. And this point, I should have some eyelids actually. So we're going to check those eyelids out because he don't look like he had eyelids. So I'm going to go here again and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. He's going to take a Damien standard and kind of add eyelids. Make sure you have a little space in between that it's not so tight because, right, if you had eyelashes, you would have it in there. So make sure it's not super tight. Give it a little bit of a space, and also at the bottom. And the bottom ones, if you can, try to make them slightly angle, and when you have the edge, it will read really nicely when the lighting hits it. So what I mean by that is don't have it just straight, right? Oops, went away. not have it like straight away. You want to have it on an angle where it follows the eye shape. The lacrimal and everything, you can do it here. My water just fell. It's okay. I wouldn't use this because you see how you can barely see the actual eye? I'm like struggling to see it. I would use something else. This one maybe looks good. This one also, you know, or just an eye, a monster eye. So maybe we can go to this one. Whatever you decide, to be honest, just make sure you have the reference for it. This is a little bit too human for me, but you decide whichever you want to kind of use and go for that. Just make sure you see it. You're not just inventing it out of nowhere. So, okay. You're going to see me kind of just keep going at those nostrils because they're looking, there you go. Maybe I want an edge. Oh, I like that. I actually like that. Yeah. But yeah, this is the whole process of how I kind of do some of my creatures, because I do love doing creatures. So let me adjust a little bit more of this here because I know he has a vocal fat and everything kind of in there, and I would want to just add some fur here. That's why I'm not touching it too much, because I'm definitely gonna add some fur in this area here to kind of give it like this feel kind of. So I'm not too worried about that there. If you want to do the ears, you can just go around and kind of just adjust them, you know, make sure that they have a little bit more of anatomy in them. Things like ears and things that are very thin, I always leave it for when I'm going to do subdivision levels. So I just keep them really simple. But do adjust the thickness on them. You don't want to have them super, you know, unless they're like that, right? But I don't want them to be too thick. That's fine. Then I'm going to take a look. Make sure to always take a look from afar. And I don't like how that's going. So I'm just going to... Wait, what am I using? Clay buildup. Yeah, should be not breaking. If that doesn't work, then let's cut it. If you want to cut stuff, make sure you cut it when you're doing Dynamesh, right? When you're at subdivision levels, it's a little bit weirder. Like it doesn't, you know, it doesn't let you as clean. So we're gonna Control Shift, and we're gonna go. And I actually like the knife ones. So let's do, yeah, that's perfect. So, boop, Control Shift. Wherever the gray is, it's what's gonna cut. So it is depending on how you draw it, because if I draw it up, you see how the gray is on the inside? It's gonna cut it. I'm gonna draw it down, and this is just to clean it up slightly because I'm OCD sometimes about edges. I don't like them like really like that. I like it clean. I like them clean, so it just gives it a little bit more of a cleaner vibe. I might go a little bit rounder with the eyes. They feel a little bit too almond shape, and I feel like if I want to introduce the goat element slightly more than just the eye color, I might want to do the eye goat shape a little bit more, to be honest. But because, like I said, I'm not going 100% from a design, which if you're going for characters and you're working on the industry, it's mostly going to be, they're going to give you the designs. Then, it's going to be a little bit more loose on the concept of what I want to adjust and what I don't want to add or not. Yeah, I want him to be a little bit darker there, and then I want this to be a little bit flatter right here in the corner, but to emphasize that nice bone structure. I don't want to take off too much, right? And we might have some, I would like to add a cut on him, like somewhere in the area, because I don't know, I feel like Krampus would be like somewhat cut and, being all creepy and stuff in the sense of hiding, going through the bushes or going through the trees or a fireplace or whatever, I feel like that would be something that he would have somewhere, a few, but sorry, I'm like trying to see if I like that. Because you also have to make sure that from the 3/4 view, everything looks good. Most of the time you want to have brow out, go slightly into the eye corner, right? Not together, but just the eye shape corner. Then it comes out with your cheekbones and then slightly in depending on the fat that you have right here on the buccal fat. Out or in, that's what's going to create your cheekbone, your cheek area. So that's what I do when I go here. I kind of look at this, and if it's not looking flat, if it's looking kind of similar correctly, and I feel like here it should be going in slightly, kind of connecting right here, kind of going a little bit more out. Boop. Creating some folds in there, and we're going to make this a little bit foldy. Things like that. So it doesn't feel like it's just a flat, flat area. I'm going to add a little bit of this, and we definitely need to work on the back of the ears, but as long as we're getting the shapes that we want, we should be good. I don't know. I might actually do a variation for you guys later of how I want the eyes, or a variation for myself. Make sure they're looking straight because they feel like they were looking up. So, got water. Question: What is the name of the clay buildup? So, what is the name of the brush? The name of the brush would be clay buildup. So we press B, then C again. You'll find it here eventually. That's why it's BCB if you actually click the hotkeys of it. Like I said, sometimes they move. So BCB, it's right here. You click it right around here. So if you click BCB, that's the brush. That's the name. Yeah. Hope that answers your question. That's the name of it. I said brush a couple of times, but yeah, it's this one, and you see how nice it is. It builds up really quickly. I would recommend it. It gives it a little bit more natural, also sculpting. Does that work? Train dynamic or flatten also, both of those I use them, and it's just to give the surface a little bit more of the similar space between it, and I feel like that might be a little bit straight. Things like creases and things like mouth slightly feeling like it's creasing better, I would add it always a little bit later, and it would be on the tertiary detail. Sorry, because I'm building up to that, right? When I get to that point, the only thing I need to do most of the time is just boop, 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 kind of adjust certain areas, and that's it. I just want to make sure that my primary and secondary are really good before I get to that tertiary detail. Or the goodest that you can get to, it doesn't have to be perfect. But it's happening with the nose. Like, it doesn't feel like it's, there you go, that's better. Okay, so I'm going to up the resolution on this. And why does it keep... There you go. The point of this is to, when I do that, oh yes, I can actually get that crease there. And we're starting to go to getting and finishing those secondary details. And remember, like I just said, this is the part of the model that you want to take the longest time at, because once you get to tertiary, it's just cleaning up, adding, and that's it. It doesn't need to be too long on that one. If you already had a vid built, I want to have like that kind of going like that. Slightly angled. I don't want it to have it too intense, and make sure you do your anatomy of the lip. But yeah, you see how from the side it looks a little bit too flat? I'm just slightly adjusting it. Boop. Maybe I like that. Maybe I don't. Ooh, maybe I want to see a little bit more teeth. Yeah, you know what? Yeah. And I sometimes do it myself. I'm like, how would that feel? So to kind of translate it. I don't know if I like how that lip is looking right at that point, like right here. So it's going to be a play in between me bringing this in slightly more and me bringing this out slightly more. We're building it up. We'll see. I think it was built up. It was just too thin there. But yeah, that's how I... Did you find the clay buildup? I hope. Don't like how that's looking. That might be a little bit of a fix up later, because I still want it to feel... There you go. That's better. But yeah, if you get to this point and you feel like your sculpt is a little bit too, messy in the sense of surface quality, what I tend to do is either I use the smooth tool and then kind of just soften everything, like, like this. Might take you a little bit because the resolution is a little bit too high. You can also do like... kind of do that. There you go. That's better. This is just a little bit too thin. I noticed that my nostrils are way too... There you go. Way too outwards. Let's see if we change that and it looks better. Boom, 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 boom. But yeah, most of it, what I do is I just make sure this is clean enough. And then from there, just jump into my tertiary. And like I said, remember that we have other things and areas of our model that we need to touch up, right? We need to touch up on our horns. We need to touch up on our tongue. The teeth. The teeth are perfectly straight. So it's things like this. They will take time. So don't worry about it. Don't try to jump in too quickly. Take your time on it. Practice it, And I'm going to up the resolution of this, so it feels a little bit more. And I'm going to use the Form Soft. Actually, no, I'm going to use Inflate, BIN. And you'll see what it does really quick. It kind of inflates stuff. And I just want to inflate and disinflate. That's a word. Certain areas in, so you can't see that, right? And it creates a nice... Oh my God, in the back a little bit. There you go. And I kind of want to have them that, like, not having certain teeth in certain areas because it's like he's really old, you know? Even though he's a magical being. Being. There you go. I thought I said, boop, boop. Make sure to just keep those ships there and not lose them. Hide that slightly because it's a little bit too intense. Flatten some areas. Do I like that? Nope. I might want to bring this up because if I notice this here was a little bit too flat, right here. So that should be a little bit more volumized. It shouldn't be too. And I want it to be really, really tight with the tongue and everything. So make sure you always also check the highlights. You see how this highlights looks a little bit weird. Round it out so it feels like it's volumized all the way through, and not just really, really on one spot. But yeah, this is also the part where I go and I check, do some lines here and there, break up the symmetry in some areas. Check if I like where my lips are, you know, because I want it to go a little bit thin, remember that? But if I'm not liking that, let's thicken them up. Question. Do you ever attend the Full Sail Online Sculpt Club? I don't believe I have. Is that more? Not sure if it's CA on the CA side because I'm on the game art side. So I'm not sure about that. Cool. So here I'm gonna just go ahead. I like to duplicate this again, and I like to do this for myself because then I can be like, okay, I turn this visibility on, be like, okay, it was all the way over here, right? And I like to compare it to see how the progress is going. So I go here and I'm like, okay, started there, cool. This one is going a little bit more bulky, and then this one is a little bit more, it's the same one because I duplicated. More rendered, if that makes sense. Not bulky, but just rendered. So from there, I duplicate one of them, right? The last one. And I'm gonna go one of two things. I'm gonna go here and check if instead of smoothing it by hand, I can go to deformation. I can use a polish maybe. You see how it, and you'll see it. You see how it softens stuff a little bit easier instead of me having to do it manually. You can do it like that. Polish. I would just do it like that sometimes. If it still keeps them, then I would just do it myself. But I don't want to do it too much, right? Because I don't want to lose too much of this contrast. And I don't like how this is going, so it's too thick. There you go. I mean, too thin. There you go. That's better. Make sure you have your bony landmarks showing. And from here, this is primary and secondary. If I was going to do hair, like I said, I would do it a little bit more in the secondary phase, which is kind of getting these nice curves. And kind of adding, you know, posing it slightly in the hair where it's going. The horns actually look good, so I'm going to keep it there for now. And whenever I want to add a little bit more of horn structure, then I would just kind of add it by hand or add it with any kind of brush that I might want to use. But yeah, you left me thinking. I wonder what the Sculpt Club is. I haven't heard about that, but that would be kind of cool to kind of do. But yeah, at this point, we're almost about that time. But I will definitely post something a little bit more advanced for you to see. I will post a little bit more of the process because, like I said, when we get into this point, this is when we're going to take our time and we're going to refine some things. We're going to add your tertiary. We're going to maybe change if, like I said, I don't like the eye shape, I'm going to change the eye shape. Adjust the teeth, make them crooked, have their own, maybe they're broken slightly or cracked. So this is where I would actually start doing that. So definitely, if you guys have any last questions, let me know right now. I'm going to start heading out. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for all the questions. They have been great. You have made me think about certain things. And just make sure you practice. That's my recommendation to you. Make sure you practice. Don't be afraid of the Wacom or any tablets, okay? Just try to throw yourself at them. So yes, if any questions, just start sending them in, and I'll answer them before I go. I hope you guys liked my primary and secondary of this. I will continue this, and I will definitely, you guys keep up in social media. You will definitely see the final post of it or render of it. Also, make sure, if you guys don't know, to check out the 12 days of gear giveaway that Full Sail is having right now until December 16. They're giving really, really cool prices like iPads, any kind of Sony cameras. Like, make sure you guys check their social media on that because that's pretty cool. Let me see if any other questions are popping out. The name, oh yeah, boom, boom, boom. Like I said, if any questions you have in the future, or when I post, they post the final sculpt, put them in the comments, and I'll be taking a look. If you need to find me in social media, I have my art station under Valerie Berrios Reyes. And I have my Instagram under Valerie_PR. So you can find me there. Send me questions. I don't mind answering them. If I don't know the answer, I'll ask somebody that knows. So don't worry, right? Let me see. Checking if there's any other questions. Drinking, hydrate. So, last question. Do you prefer Maya or ZBrush? I don't know. I said that really in Spanish. Maya. Both. I mean, they're not. It's not one or the other because ZBrush is more sculpting, and Maya is more polygonal modeling. So it's not one or the other. I do use both, right? So for example, let's say I want to do some kind of gear or a gun or anything, a little bit more hard surface, I would go more towards Maya. Because it's a little bit easier to build it over there than ZBrush. ZBrush is, like I said, more sculpting, more organic shapes. You can still do hard surface. It's just going to take a little bit more time. So both are the questions for that, because you will use in your pipeline most of the time, you will use both, either being Blender or Maya, or you will use some kind of 3D modeling software. So it's not one or the other, it's both. Cool. I hope that answered your question. Anyways, guys, thank you for having me. Make sure you check out the social media stuff, and have a good holiday. Be a good person, right? Try to be nice. If not, Krampus will get you. Bye. Thank you for having me. Bye.